This is our video about our trip to Japan. We will be going over Hofstede's culture dimensions and how they relate to the companies that we visited.
Hofstede's work was groundbreaking for cross-cultural psychology and continues to be a standard for international business and communication today. The 6 dimensions are power distance index, individualism versus collectivism, uncertainty avoidance, masculinity versus femininity, long-term orientation versus short-term orientation, and indulgence versus restraint. Scores are on a scale of 0 to 100, but as cultures are most meaningfully understood in comparison with other cultures, the emphasis is put on a country's relative position to another rather than its exact score.
Our project examines how startups differ from traditional businesses in Japan through the lens of 3 of Hofstede's cultural dimensions: individualism, masculinity, and long-term orientation. For the first dimension, individualism versus collectivism, Japan's score is more collectivist. This can be seen even outside of the business world in how people are consistently orderly, courteous, and clean in public spaces, or in how important it is for students to be a part of a club. Another aspect that relates to the collectivist nature is that Japan is a highly homogeneous country, with over 98% of its population being ethnically Japanese. The startups we visited stand out from traditional manifestations of collectivism by having a more diverse workplace, in the case of Kabuku, despite a considerable language barrier, as well as more willingness to take risks and incorporate new technologies, especially in areas where older standards are widely accepted. One example we discussed was the Two Rabbits brewery startup, who couldn't find a Japanese company that was willing to work with their requests for a newer part. This resulted in them finding a Chinese company who was immediately willing to accommodate them.
Regarding long-term versus short-term orientation, Japan's high score of 88 makes them a very pragmatic nation when it comes to conducting business. Traditional companies in Japan mainly operate with the goal of managing for stability, which brings with it the expectation of a long-standing commitment to the company in exchange for job security. This idea has become so ingrained in Japanese culture that the concept of maintaining a position at one company for the majority of a career is one that is facilitated by schools and the parents of students. As a result, the high-risk, high-reward nature of startups and entrepreneurial endeavors have developed a stigma. This stigma is not completely unwarranted, as the methods of managing for marketplace growth in an emerging market carry with them higher risk as well as high reward. However, the startups we visited were able to highlight the rewards of taking such a risk, with Kabuku's agile prototyping and open innovation strategies allowing collaboration with larger companies like Honda and Toyota, and a sense push for intelligent solutions to autonomous vehicles catching the attention of the creator of Sony's PlayStation. While long-term orientation may have a strong foothold, these companies reveal that startup culture can find its place in Japan's business world.
Over the course of our trip to Japan, we visited a few different Japanese startups, and we were able to see the ins and outs of what they do and really get a feel of how they differ from traditional Japanese companies and US-based startups. So I'll give you a quick introduction of the 3 startups we visited. To start, in Tokyo, we visited a startup called Kabuku, which provides 3D printing services to its customers for on-demand custom print for prototyping and consulting. They currently collaborate with automotive and AI companies such as Toyota and Team 4 to develop and streamline 3D printed vehicle parts. When we visited Kabuku, they had a very cool open workspace that really allows for a more cooperative environment and a more modern feel. Additionally, one thing we noticed about Kabuku was its diversity, as 3 out of the 4 people that presented to us were not Japanese natives and were from places like Germany and China. The next company is called Ascent Robotics. A representative from Ascent came to speak with us in Tokyo, where we learned that they are a robotics and AI development startup that focuses on intelligent solutions to autonomous vehicles and the next generation of industrial robotics. They showed us examples of how AI and machine learning are used to create autonomous driving itself, and a virtual environment where it recognizes traffic patterns, learns from its mistakes rapidly, and navigates the streets safely. And last but not least, in Kyoto, we visited Flossphia, which is a startup that stems from ongoing research at Kyoto University. Philosophy answers the scientific community's need for high-quality green semiconductors, where they make use of the physical properties of gallium oxide in their products